Well, I thought now would be a good opportunity for an update. We've reached Niger, and we are staying in the camping touristique just outside Niamey, the capital of Niger. It's a campsite, but it's more like a bar/restaurant thing with just a bit of space to camp at, and it just seems to be very popular with the locals for drinking. So they've kept us up all hours, boozing away, while we've been just generally been quite laid back, quite just chilling out, having a few beers, that sort of thing, recovering from our last few days on the piste. In fact, it's been a very eventful last few days, really. Where to begin? Well, really it all came about because we wanted to take a more exciting route between Ouagadougou and Niamey, and so we went up to Gorum, which is in the northeast of Burkina Faso, on the road, which is a good route, and then that turns into piste, and that was good fun. So sort of blasting along lovely flat open piste for mile after mile, which is good fun, very easy, a bit more challenging than on the road, but pretty good. And spent a night up there at a very basic campsite, and from there, as we were coming back to a place called Dori, which is where the map says a road starts to go to Niger, when we were asking the way, it turned out that the road was actually quite a full-on sandy piste. So from that perspective, we basically started to sort of nibble away at this piste, which was just thick sand in places, and we were doing, I think we did about 20 kilometres that afternoon through the sand, if that, to get to the border, which we all thought was very hard work. And then the next day, a place called Satunga, is it? Secunda. And from there we crossed over the border and had basically a day of about 60, I think it was about 60 kilometres or 50 kilometres of, again, proper sand. Kept falling off. I fell off about 5 times, and the last time I fell off was quite fast, so I ripped off one of my panniers, but luckily it just bolted straight back on, so that wasn't too much of a problem. But we eventually got to a place called Terra, which is just on the Niger side, and found a campsite there, a compliment, that the customs guy pointed us to, who we later found out was mad and would walk around sort of saluting and shouting and trying to sort of drink your drink and get food off your plate, and everyone knew he was mad and told us that he was mad. But anyway, the campsite was alright until we woke up the next day and found out that they charged us some ridiculous amount for this camping, and didn't even have any facilities, didn't have showers or anything like that. So we were pretty cross with ourselves because we usually ask the price of everything, and this time we hadn't, so we were pretty cross for getting suckered into that one. So we returned to the bad old days where we weren't asking prices and then getting, suckered in the morning with higher charges than we would have anticipated, depending where we are, especially places like Mauritania and Morocco. But Dan and I learned from that, and so anyway, every now and again you do learn these things again. It keeps you fresh, keeps you sharp, and from there we've basically driven down towards Niamey, and although there seem to be a million ways of saying that name, Niamey, but that's when we were probably only about 10 kilometres from Niamey, and Dan and Lynn, so one of the guys who's travelling with us, ended up riding his bike into a hole where part of the bridge had collapsed, and he probably fell about 5 feet with the bike on top of him upside down and broke his arm. So so that wasn't so good, and we had to send him off to hospital and pull the bikes out. We had crowds of locals around us. It was all quite stressful. Not the greatest introduction, especially after we were so tired, having ridden down quite a long way and taken on the pistes and managed to get through without any serious mishap. And for that to happen was a bit of a real shame. So we ended up staying at there's a little old man's hut that was just off the road there, because we weren't actually on a diversion at the time, where basically the road is you're just sent off through these villages and just red sandy dust, and you'll just be going down the streets between people's houses almost. But anyway, so we stayed in this proper sort of authentic little, almost like a corral with the animals, and we put our tents just outside, and he was really kind and brought us food and things. So the next day we were able to get up and ride our bikes to this campsite, the Coppermont Touristique, and then Lynn's turned up from the hospital and said that Dan's fine, although he's broken the two bones at the top of his wrist, and one of them's broken quite badly, so his arm sort of in this kind of, so I'm sure if you can see it, but it's in a kind of bent shape, like things like that, but at a funny angle with his arm, just so that it mends the right way, get him back on a bike as soon as possible. And so that wasn't so good, but she came along, and Chris rode Dan, little Dan as we call him, Northern Dan, rode his bike back, and after I'd given him a lift, and Lynn's had a lift on the back of Big Dan's bike, and she rode her own bike back here to the campsite. And then we went to see Dan last night once we got set up, and seems in pretty good spirits, but they're saying sort of they're saying 6 to 8 weeks, which he's reading kind of as an ex-motocross race was sort of 3 to 4 weeks, but it wasn't not a bad break, and they don't think they're going to have to take the it's all in plaster now. They don't think they're going to have to take the cast off and to operate or anything. So he's just got to stay here in Niamey for basically for 3 weeks and go to sort of regular checkups every 3 to 5 days or however long it takes. I can't remember what he said. But it just so happened that I actually recorded the sort of the aftermath of the crash, and I was able to I just sort of held the camera this video camera while it was on, just so that they could sort of see in the cold light of day what had happened when they were ready. But everyone's spirits seemed quite up yesterday, so I thought I'd show it to the men, and it was fine. And so that's really been what we've been up to. And apart from that, no other major changes except for that. I know, I decided that I would get it cut off, and Lynn's has some clippers which Dan uses, and so I thought, seeing as we're now going to be going our separate ways, at least until Cameroon, I thought I'd take advantage of the clippers and give myself a slightly more future-proof haircut, which is a bit of a first for me, but I thought it'd be fun. So yeah, I thought I'd do that, shave it all off. So yeah, we'll have some more news later.